You're listening to Houston Real Estate Radio. I'm your host, Shannon Register, and every week we bring you news and information, and today's information you just gotta have it. If you missed any of it, go to the website and pull it off, HoustonRealEstateRadio.com. Watch the videos because you're getting some great information today. If you live in a homeowners association, you need to hear about what we're talking about today. So many homeowners associations have people on the board who volunteer and give up so much time to help the community. It's a wonderful thing that they do to give back, but they don't know where to go for the resources they need. They don't know where to go for the training they need to really be able to do what's best for the community. And we're talking about that today because I've got two members from the Community Associations Institute, which has a Houston chapter. They are here to talk about it. We've got Margey Meyer here and also Chris Archambault here. And he's an attorney in the association, and they've given us some great information. So if you missed last segment, you want to watch that video too. It'll be 2 videos, but really great information. And we're going to just talk about some of the things you guys hear about all the time in communities. I mean, because a lot of the stuff that people have issue with, it's the same issue from neighborhood to neighborhood to neighborhood, right? So what do you do, when the house next door to you has been foreclosed on and the grass is, 2 feet high? Everybody's hating this eyesore they're having to look at. Thank goodness we're not having many of those foreclosures anymore. Mm-hmm. But, if this kind of thing does happen to you, what can you do?
Well, I mean, as far as the restrictions go, they're there for that purpose, to maintain your property value. So when you see your neighbor or someone down the street who isn't complying or letting their grass overgrow or not
weeds
replacing
in the flower bed.
Exactly, mm-hmm. The neighbors are going to be the best eyes and ears for the neighborhood, especially when you're talking about the larger associations. Though they might have someone who comes by and inspects, the people who live in the community are going to be the best people to to monitor that themselves.
Call and complain.
Exactly, and that's really what it comes down to. Yeah. A lot of HOAs have websites or call lines that you can report violations and bring it to their attention. Mm-hmm. The deed restriction enforcement is a little bit of a longer process now that the legislator has enacted some rules to be followed. Mm-hmm. But that is the best way to do it, is report it to your board of directors, and whether they have a manager or if they're self-managed, that is something that the board can maintain. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't see it because it's all done through mail, but yeah. If you can report it and have an open line communication with your board, you can feel comfortable that that's what they're there for.
So ultimately what that means is that the association may have the right to go onto the property and mow it and then bill back the cost to the homeowner after due notice and everything mm-hmm. else. Sometimes it might make sense, though, just to call the city, because an abandoned home with high weeds mm-hmm. Could be a city violation as well, and the city might be able to come in and enforce it, mow it, so that the association doesn't incur the expense.
Okay, and then the opposite neighbor, the one that mows his yard every Saturday at 6 a.m.
Yeah, we definitely see that, especially living in Texas. And unfortunately, in the summer in Texas, 6 a.m. might be the only time it's cool enough to mow your lawn.
Right. But for the people whose Saturdays their sleep-in day.
Absolutely. And it's going to be one of those frustrating things. Mm-hmm. Again, the best way to handle it is probably to go to your neighbor, explain the situation to them. Hey, obviously I'm sleeping in, would you refrain? A lot of people outsource their lawn care, and it's a maintenance company that's coming in and doing it. Yeah. So it's great to try and handle it neighbor to neighbor. Yeah. If it doesn't get handled that way, report it to your board. They might have some rule in their restrictions. I mean, it really comes down to being familiar with what your restrictions say. They might have something in there that says contractors can't come onto the property until a certain time. Mm-hmm. Though this is a common issue for a lot of associations, mm-hmm. not all associations' restrictions are the same. So you really have to take a look.
Sometimes within an association, each section has different restrictions, because you may have a gated section, you may have a section on the water. You could be very, you may have some on the golf course. So each section could have different stipulations too. So you need to know what section you're buying in when you buy, so that you can not only read the deed restrictions but get into the section you're in and find out what's going on there. You may not be able to put up a fence or, the type of fence you want.
And there are neighborhoods in Houston that have these master and sub-association relationships where you could be in Section 1 and then also you're subject to their restrictions, and then also the restrictions for the master association, which encompasses more than just one section. Yeah. So you really do have to do your little due diligence on this mm-hmm. and make sure you know what you're getting into. For a lot of people, their homes are their biggest investment, and you kind of need to know the restrictions and the rules that apply to that, so not to run the foul of it, but also keep the property values up.
And another thing to consider is that the board of directors is really like a microcosm of city government. So they need to be responsive to their constituents, to the homeowners.
Yeah.
So if a majority of the homeowners don't want lawn mowing before 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock on a Saturday, they just need to get together, talk with the board members. Maybe the board wants to have a straw vote to find out what the majority of the homeowners want. And then from there, they can say, okay, we're going to make it an 8 o'clock or a 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
And they just have to be responsive. They have to listen to their constituents.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. They have to have a way to communicate with their members, whether it's meetings, an online source. They have to have some way to communicate with their members so they can get that feedback, so they know what the issues are. Because the deed restrictions can be changed, can be altered and amended as the neighborhood changes and grows from decade to decade. Because there's some old neighborhoods in Houston, and some of them need some changes, right?
Absolutely.
So let's talk about those communities that were built and doing well, but they didn't build out all their lots. Now we've come out of the reception. They've got some builders in there now building on those lots. Let's talk about what happens when, you owned a house, you had certain features that were standard, and now you've got a new builder coming in, maybe some different standards that they've imposed on building those new homes in the neighborhood. And the current homeowners don't like it. Like maybe their homes had hardwood floors, and now the new houses are carpet throughout. What can the people who live in the neighborhood do to fight something like that?
I think as long as the builders are complying with the architectural guidelines, there's not too much at the other homeowners. There's a minimum square footage of the home. It has to be 2 stories, or it has to have a chimney, or it has to not take up more than so much of the lot.
Right.
As long as the developers are complying with that restriction in the governing documents, the homeowners really don't have much recourse. But I'm betting you see that a lot as a realtor.
We do see it, and certain neighborhoods have been very careful. So, for example, what is it? Bender's Landing, for example. They were very careful because they knew a lot of people were buying lots and holding them and not building right away. They were buying them for investment. And so they were very careful to make sure that all the houses had to meet certain criteria. But then you have other neighborhoods who didn't make that stipulation because they thought it was going to be completely built out. Then the downturn happened. It didn't get completely built out. And then they brought in other new builders. And the homeowners have gone back and said, we should have made sure that we were protected against this. So.
And now it's too late.
Because it brings down their home values.
In a lot of situations, this is kind of where being active in your HOA will be beneficial, because if you see that happening, you can always go in and impose new architectural control guidelines if you act as an entire association, impose new restrictions. And if the HOA is already set up, a lot of times for new construction, you have to apply with the HOA for approval for the construction. So the board gets to see what the plans are before the actual property is built on.
Let's go quickly to something that I know a lot of people have, especially buyers moving into a resale house. Who fixes the fence when it's owned by both people, it's built on the property line? When there's damage to the fence and somebody wants it fixed, like a new buyer, who fixes it? Who pays for it?
Is it a common fence that is around the perimeter that's been identified as the association responsibility, or is it a party fence between two owners?
Two homeowners.
Well, with homeowner fences, and this is what I mentioned in the earlier segment, is it's one of those hot topic issues. Almost everyone has a fence between their properties, and a good fence makes good neighbors. So when those things fall into disrepair, you really need to check your restrictions, because in a lot of the associations, we see where fences are maintained by the association. So check to see if that's the case. If not, this is going to be another one of those instances where you need to work it out with your neighbor to get it repaired, to pay the cost of it. And if they're not willing to work with you, you might need to consult an attorney and kind of figure that out, because it's not really an HOA matter if it's not in your restrictions.
Yeah, the governing documents, there's a couple different sections that you have to look at. One is association maintenance responsibilities. One is owner maintenance responsibilities. And then there's a definition of common elements and then limited common elements, and they may have different maintenance responsibilities. So it's always going back to that video you were talking about.
There you go.
Do when
That's
you've got
you
a
need.
party
That's
wall fence.
Okay, let's give the website. I've got www.caihouston.org. That's the website where consumers, board members, anybody can go, right?
Correct.
And that has your hotline number.
It has actually a link to the hotline form.
Okay.
So there's a tab that says HOA hotline. Click on the tab and there's a form to fill out, and we usually respond within 24 hours.
Okay, and if you out there, you have a homeowner homeowners association or condo association that you feel like needs some help or some guidance or some assistance, tell them about this website, www.caihouston.org. That's the Community Association's website for Houston. It will help educate your board members and your management company if they need it. Chris Archambault, glad you came on to talk to us. We appreciate it. And Margey Meyer, thanks for listening to Houston Real Estate Radio. We'll be back after a word from our sponsors. Find us online at HoustonRealEstateRadio.com.
Hello everyone, welcome to SecReal.com. My name is Hanan Yadin. I would like to speak a little bit about security and safety for individuals who travel and also doing business in the United States. We created this website to provide useful tools in reference to security, to minimize your chances to become a victim to acts of terrorism, crime, and kidnapping. We offer different type of classes, and I encourage you to visit our website, secreal.com. Visit our website and check what kind of classes we offer around Texas, around Houston, and around the country. We have an extensive background in military and the security field, approximately 30 years. So we're going to offer you a very useful tools that based on our experience in security, in terrorism, and hopefully will boost your security and awareness and confidence when you go to your business objectives. Again, we hope to see you in our classes that we offer at secret.com, and be safe.
you